to prevent chronic disease. And we've done a lot of the steps. We're doing another step today. And this step I like because I feel this step you have control over. It's called nutrition. Remember that? This time of year, and we're recording this at the cusp of Thanksgiving and the rest of the December holidays. And sometimes nutrition goes out the window. But we're going to talk about it anyway. There's always hope. So welcome back, Dr. Ced.
Thank you, Toni.
Thank you so much.
Me, and thank you for everyone watching and listening.
You're so inspiring.
I hope so.
Yes. So what do we need to know about nutrition?
Yes. So as we've discussed these last couple of sessions, the book is all about the 7 steps to prevent chronic disease. And perhaps one of the most important steps in preventing chronic disease and reaching that optimal health is the 5th step that we talk about in the book, which is improving nutrition. And first of all, I like to make a distinction between the 2 types of nutrients, the 2 categories or classes of nutrients that we deal with on a daily basis. You have your macronutrients and you have your micronutrients. Macronutrients are things that we need in larger amounts. So we're talking about carbs, the fats, things that people, and protein, of course, things that we hear all the time when you just flip on a channel on TV and you see a commercial. These are common words nowadays, but we don't often talk enough about micronutrients, which are things such as vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, and even antioxidants. So that's what I want to shed some light on in today's conversation.
Okay, so micronutrients, you just mentioned vitamins and minerals. Mm-hmm. I've heard the term trace minerals are in certain kinds of foods.
Yes.
And I've also heard what they do for us. Mm-hmm. So talk about the micronutrients, because that is, I think, the most fascinating, and it often seems like the most important and the least understood.
Yes. In my opinion, I think they're probably one of the more important nutrients our bodies need, and they are very misunderstood, in my humble opinion. Now, there are 3 major types that I focus on in the book, and these are vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. Now, first of all, when we talk about vitamins, everybody hears about vitamins. We hear about taking vitamins over the counter, multivitamins, and that's all well and good. But unfortunately, I believe one of the greatest disservices that we've done to people is not talking about minerals. In a way, I think minerals are probably more important than vitamins. Just to make a distinction, vitamins often are nutrients that often come from foods that we consume, right? You have 2 categories. You have water-soluble vitamins, which are vitamins that you need to consume every day. And then you have fat-soluble vitamins, particularly vitamins A, D, E, and K, which your body can actually store within your fat, which can be used later date. So that's good. You don't need to worry about that. So you can eat a lot of, you can take, for example, dairy products, which are usually fortified with vitamin D. And then your body will store that additional vitamin D because obviously you're going to need it for strong bones and metabolism and everything, and your immune system as well. So that's vitamin. There's about 13 of them that we need on a daily basis in order to function. Now, when you compare this to minerals, now minerals, unlike vitamins, are inorganic substances that are usually found in or obtained from the plants that we consume. And this is very important because there's about 60 different minerals, right? So there's about 13 to about 16 vitamins that are crucial, but there's 60, that's 60 minerals that we need in order to function. Now, wow. A deficiency in any of those minerals may lead to the development of a chronic disease. Just to show you how important these micronutrients are, if you can think back to the days, maybe like the 1600s, 1700s, when people traveled on ships, you had sailors and pirates. One of the most important things that these guys would do is they would bring along with them limes, lemons, oranges, and everything, because they discovered that if you're at sea and you go for long periods of time without eating fruits, without eating limes, you develop this disease called scurvy.
Scurvy.
Right, which is a wasting away. But they realized that if you occasionally eat an orange or a lemon or one of those citrus fruits, guess what? You can go and never experience scurvy, right? So I believe that they've estimated to be about 60 milligrams of vitamin C is needed in order to prevent scurvy. Likewise, we have things such as vitamin D, which helps build strong bones. A deficiency in vitamin D affects your mind, your mood, your mental health, affects your bone, affects the strength and curvature of the strength and development of your bones. It even affects your immune system and your respiratory health. It affects your ability to produce cholesterol. So the point I'm making, I could go on with, chromium plays a role in insulin sensitivity.
Yes.
So that can benefit, many diabetics. So we see that when we go extended periods of time without consuming enough of these minerals, chronic diseases begin to develop, right? It might take a little while, it might take a few years, but boom, you develop a chronic condition. Now, what's interesting is over these past 70, 80 years in these United States, as we've begun to modernize and found different ways to grow foods and grow foods faster and grow foods bigger than they were before, we've realized that, okay, yeah, but we're able to produce mass numbers of food products and vegetables and everything, but at what cost, right? We've now realize that, hey, yes, we're able to grow things a lot faster, but we have completely neglected the soil, because the quality or the nutritional density of the foods that we're growing depends largely on the soil that it's grown at. So for example, I remember reading that in the 1950s, a broccoli had somewhere like 800 milligrams of calcium, something to that effect. Don't quote me exactly, but over the decades, the amount of calcium that you find in the average broccoli stalk has decreased by almost 80%.
Wow.
So it's the same broccoli, it looks the same, but you're gonna have to eat 3 times more broccoli to get the nutrient density that you got with the older variants of the broccoli. So what's happening is, and what that really means is, your body is going to be craving, let's say your body has a threshold that it needs, just saying, let's say your body needs 600 milligrams of calcium. And let's say each broccoli stalk has only 200 milligrams of calcium. So that means you're gonna have to eat 3 times more broccoli in order to get what your body needs. Now, in addition to giving you nutrients, you're also getting calories, right? So it may be that one of the reasons we're getting heavier is that we're actually nutritionally deficient. So your body is always craving more and more and more. You're eating a lot of sweets, but the body doesn't need all that much sugar. You're eating a lot of fats, but your body doesn't need all that. The body needs the nutrients that is in the foods, and because the way we process things and the way we grow things to the way we make them and process them and cook them and deep fry them, each step drastically reduces the nutrient content of the food to its final form, that which we consume. So the body is not getting as much as it should. And so it's gonna keep sending you the cravings. And so you're eating more and you don't even realize it, because your mind is the one dictating this. And you wake up one day and you're 20 pounds overweight, 50 pounds overweight, etc., and you don't even know where it all came from.
I like that part, etc.
Well, but a lot of people realize, oh my gosh, I've gained all this weight, and it's like they weren't even paying attention. You don't just wake up 50 pounds overweight. It's a process. You gain a pound here, 2 pounds there, but then it really, when you look in the mirror and you're just shocked at what's become of you, then you say to yourself, what happened? But I'd like people to know that a lot of this is due to nutrient deficiencies. Yes, we're eating more food, But the reason we're eating more food is because the body doesn't necessarily care about taste. It cares about nutrient load. And if the food smells good, looks good, tastes great, but the nutrient content is low, your body will keep sending you cravings because it's constantly checking the vitamins and the mineral levels in it, and it's trying to get more of them.
I know that, there's been some talk about recently, maybe I just heard about it, is that frozen vegetables in a way are more nutritious than the fresh ones because most people don't eat the fresh ones fast enough. Someone convinced me that frozen's more nutritious, although I think the fresh tastes better. But I want to ask you this other question. I've noticed sometimes the way I've eaten, how my eating's changed over the years of my life. And I've seen other people eat things and they wonder why they're gaining weight. And I think to myself, well, if you lay off of that Thousand Island dressing, so is there any way that the things that we do, I know the cooking, the certain kinds of cooking and things that we add to them can cause a loss of, does it kill the nutrients when you glom it up with like too much salt or too much, can you eat a salad like smothered with salad dressing and still get the same nutrition?
That's a great question, Toni. So I just want to say this. To your point, as far as what happens to the nutrient content of food over time, it does decrease. You're absolutely right. So, I assume, based on what you said, that if you do freeze some vegetables at peak ripeness, then the nutritional content has been preserved,
Yes.
right? So that would be a great thing. But if something's been sitting out for a week, 2 weeks, over time, the nutritional content may, begin to just wane.
Yeah.
So there are many things that we do to food that decreases its content. I think if you were to, for example, if you want to get the most nutrients out of a particular vegetable, you would want to eat it raw. Now that's not for everyone because I've tried eating raw and it can be tough on your teeth
Really?
and things. Well, it's not for everyone,
I'm surprised.
well, if you can, great. But that's where you're going to get most of your nutrients. Now, there's a movie that I remember watching. It's a movie/documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, where this Australian businessman came over to the United States. He was massively overweight. And for a period of about 30 days, he just juiced. He juiced his meals. Everything was raw, and he wasn't going to chew all day, so he would blend it in as a juice and everything. And what was amazing about that is you got to see his transformation on screen over the 2 hours. And what was interesting was he lost a lot of weight. Now, he wasn't just juicing, he was also running more and moving more for the documentary, and he was exercising. But you could see him transform in the 30 days. I believe it was a period of 30 days. And, and you would go the camera would follow the man to his doctor's office, and you would see the labs go down and the diabetes risk, the A1C drastically decrease. I think he managed to reverse his diabetes in the movie, right? He didn't need to be on insulin or any of those other medications anymore because he was able to get the optimal nutrients or all of the nutrition content in the foods. Now, since most of us cook foods, you have to be mindful and understand that, hey, when you're frying this thing, you're denaturing the protein. You're denaturing some of the nutrients that are in there, which means the longer you fry it, the less nutrients you have it. Now, a great compromise is to steam the food, right? Because steaming you're not frying it or denaturing it. You're just steaming it up to soft it. Usually, if a vegetable is tough, you can, like corn, for example, when you boil it or whatever, you're still getting most of the corn. It's just that now it's softer or easier to eat and probably tastier too.
Yeah.
Right? So I find steaming food is probably a good compromise. You're getting most of the nutrients that you get from eating it raw, but you're also going easy on your teeth and maybe less things stuck in between your teeth. So I did want to say that you're absolutely right in the sense that what we do to a food can absolutely affect its nutrient content, and that's very important.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also when you're adding things that might not necessarily be good for you.
Yeah, well, here's how it
Sugar,
works.
salt, fat.
Well, and that's a great point, Toni. Here's how it works. So let's take salt, for example. Salt is actually a very important nutrient. Sodium chloride, those are two minerals that are absolutely important. Because salt gets a bad rap, so I feel like I have to defend it a little bit.
Yeah.
Salt is actually absolutely important for hydrochloric acid, which is the stomach acid. So you do need a little bit of salt because without salt, your ability to break down foods in your stomach actually gets weaker, which puts you at greater risk of GI or gastrointestinal issues, acid reflux. It actually puts you at greater risk of that. I think salt has gotten a bad rap, and this is my humble opinion. I think the issue we're facing in this country is that we're eating a lot of table salt, again, which is not entirely salt. It's salt plus other ingredients.
Yeah.
If you remove the calcium silica and all those things, I think you're going to have a much healthier product, right? Or if you take, some of the other types of salt, Himalayan pink salt, different types of different varieties of sea salt, I think you're going to have a much better health profile. So I think we've sort of fallen victim to a play on words, which is salt gives you high blood pressure, but there's various types of salts, right? So which of these will give you high blood pressure, and why is it affecting your arteries? Well, a lot of it is because we're not drinking enough water. So if you're dehydrated internally, which, your blood volume is predominantly water, so which means you constantly need water, right? Your arteries will begin to narrow. And also, there's something in salt, in table salt, the silica. I've read that it actually causes a little bit of inflammation along your arteries because your arteries are very, they're not as thick and strong as veins. Arteries are actually very small and smaller. They're very tiny compared to veins. And so if you're eating a lot of table salt, for example, the silica, which is in the table salt, will actually scratch the surface of the arteries, and over time can cause can damage them.
I've heard that.
Yes, which would prompt the body to produce cholesterol, which also gets a bad reputation, but it's trying to save your life. Cholesterol will have to go and be deposited along the areas of the arteries that have been damaged to stop internal bleeding. Right? So, but again, it's all a play on words. We say cholesterol is bad for you, it causes heart attack. Absolutely not. Your brain is predominantly cholesterol. Your sex hormones are predominantly, your brain is insulated by cholesterol, the neurons. Your sex hormones are cholesterol. Testosterone and estrogen comes from cholesterol. Vitamin D is nothing but cholesterol interacting with sunlight to be converted into vitamin D. So your bone health is dependent on cholesterol. Your mental health is dependent. So many aspects of your health depends on cholesterol. But we look at one aspect and we make generalizations and we demonize what the wonderful Creator has put in us to help us function. And so I get a little passionate about salt when people have these misconceptions about it, of its negative impact on health. No, I think it's a wonderful thing. So I said that to say, a lot of times when we are trying to eat healthier, we're told, oh no, stay away from salt. No, you do need salt actually. In fact, they say farmers usually will put a salt lick out for the animals, in the morning.
Yes.
So the animals never suffer or complain about high blood pressure, right? Because they're also drinking water.
And they're also running around.
They're also running around. So now if you remove those things, if you replace water with sodas and then running around with, a sedentary lifestyle, sitting indoors, sitting at home, watching TV for long periods of time, well, you're gonna have things begin to go wrong. And so when we look for things to blame, we begin to blame the salt, we begin to blame the cholesterol, we begin to blame this. But remember, you need 60 minerals. Sodium and chloride are minerals, and they are essential for your health.
It's for the electrolyte balance, I've been told.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And also for your heart as well.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So you sometimes you can feel lightheaded and you don't know why. And I know that I know people, personally, me, who've experienced an imbalanced electrolyte situation.
Yes.
I was going to ask you also, or comment to you, there's things like People won't eat like raw sugar. They don't think it's going to taste right. They won't, I mean, they see the sea salt. It looks a little different. It's a little bit more like
Coarse and bigger.
But the irony of this is that, for instance, raw sugar is sweeter than table sugar. And sea salt and Himalayan salt, all those things, from my experience, are saltier than table salt. So, go figure.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. So a lot of it is education. We're talking about changing cultures within a generation. So if your grandmother's only ever known table sugar and table salt, and your mother's only ever known, or your father, your parents have only ever known table sugar, table salt, and then someone comes along and says, hey, you know what? All these problems we have is due to the fact that we're eating too much sugar. Well, here's raw sugar, which gives you all the same benefits of the taste, but it has certain things in there that trace minerals in there that maybe it doesn't spike your blood sugar as high as table sugar. For a lot of people, that's a change is a scary thing because they're all their lives they've been used to eating one type of food or one way, and now they're being told that, hey, one of the reasons we're obese or we have an epidemic of diabetes is we're consuming too much of this. Try this. You get all the same benefits and then more. So I think part of it is just education. I know that we are creatures of habits. Right? When you go to the store, many a times you don't even think. You see something that you've always eaten and you just go for it. Never mind the product next to it that may be better for you. You just know that you're here for this product and that's what you're going to get. So for example, I harp on vegetable oils and seed oils. I always tell people, stay away from them. If you're going to use cooking oils, then please use olive oil, avocado oil, palm oil, something like that. They have less radicalized, they're less processed, less hydrogenation, and they're overall better for you. But most people will buy the canola oil, they'll buy the cheaper oils because that's what they've been, mama's been using, daddy's been using, grandmama's been using. So it's a habit. But we now know those things are absolutely detrimental to our health and to our heart health even. Hence why, heart disease is the #1 killer in this country.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know that. I remember having a bird once that died of a heart attack. It seemed like it suffered for like a couple minutes and then it was gone.
Well, and you know what? The World Health Organization states something like 500,000. There are 500,000 deaths annually due to trans fats. Excuse me. Wow. Right now, trans fats are things that are a type of fat that was used. They really became popular in the early 1900s, around World War II period. But they really started developing them in the 1920s. We had World War I and then World War II as an alternative to butter. And so part of what happened was that we were beginning to ration things here on the homeland to send to the troops. You want your troops to die from bullets, not malnutrition.
Yeah.
So you would have shortages
you want your troops to die.
Well, yeah, but you want them to be well fed. But mainland America would have shortages. Shortages in butter and everything. So people were looking for alternatives. Because they've become cheaper, a lot of people still go for them. But the unfortunate thing is these are absolutely unhealthy fats. And we talk about it in the book. These are absolutely unhealthy fats that I personally attribute to a lot of these heart diseases and cases of heart attacks and that development of diabetes. They're full of trans fats. They inflame your arteries as they travel throughout your bloodstream. They are just overall bad for your health, your metabolism. But for a lot of people, that's all they've ever known. Mama ate it, grandmama ate it, granddaddy ate it, daddy ate it. And so they continue these trends. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of these heart disease and heart attacks come from. Yeah. Because we're eating things that are packed full of trans fats, packed full of free radicals, just absolutely unhealthy for us, and so we're dying.
So we got to get our vitamins and minerals. It seems in order to get enough of this, you have to eat an awful lot of food. So I'm wondering, if we can just sort of wrap it up and just what's one thing you want to leave the audience with before we close out?
Sure. And you brought up a great point, Toni. Because of what's happening with the way in which we grow food now, with everything that's done with soil erosion, and we're not allowing the soil to rest and replenish itself, right? And we're constantly spraying chemicals and all these things on crops to kill the bugs. Because of all this, the nutrient content of food over the years, over the decades, has actually decreased. Not only that, we're also modifying these foods and everything. We still need to eat them, but we just have to recognize that, an apple today has a lot less nutrients than an apple 50 years ago. So your body still needs to get a certain threshold of vitamins and minerals. And if it can't get it from the apple, you're not going to be full from eating that apple. It's going to keep sending you cravings to eat more than just one apple. And so we have to recognize that, yes, unfortunately, with everything that we've been doing, we will generally eat more food than ever before. So the only way around that I see, and I talk about this in the book, is supplementation.
Right.
Because supplementation is essentially a shortcut. Now, I'm not advocating replacing eating healthy with taking pills or vitamins or minerals. What I'm simply saying is we have to recognize that in this fast-paced world, this world of fast food and convenience, a lot of what we're exposed to, it's just, they don't consider the nutrient content. So for example, when you eat out, when you order out, a lot of restaurants use a lot of vegetable oils, and to fry things because they tend to be cheaper than than the less radicalized things like palm oil or even olive oil or extra virgin olive oil. So as good as the food is, a lot of the stuff in there has been shown to cause heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity. We know these things. And so you cannot help, unless you're very wealthy, you cannot help but put these things into your body. So the only way out, or the only way to give yourself a break, in addition to drinking a lot of water, pooping, reducing inflammation, and being active, is to make sure that while you're eating healthy, you're also supplementing. It's the only way to catch you up, because otherwise you're just not going to be able to eat enough to get your body what it needs. Now, when it comes to supplementation, I strongly encourage people, get food-based supplements. So the trick is, when you get a particular supplement and you turn it around, if the words sound too scientific, then that is what's called a synthetic vitamin or a synthetic brand of minerals. So you definitely want to make sure that you're getting multivitamins, not just one, multivitamins, as well as multi-mineral. And as far as the minerals, ideally make sure they're in liquid form and make sure they are plant derived. If you start seeing chemicals and scientific words, you're probably not going to absorb most of it.
Okay, so as we close, just tell the audience where they can find out, what website should they go to learn more.
Yes.
Besides buying this book, you can see I have all kinds of marks, and I like this book. You can tell that I read it.
Thank you. No.
So what website should they go to find out more?
Thank you for the opportunity, Toni. Yes, so if you wanted to learn a little bit more about the book, it's called Self-Care Advocate, 7 Steps to Prevent Chronic Disease. You can learn more about the book or myself by visiting my website, drced.com. That's 5 letters, drced.com, where you can learn more about our challenge. You can get a copy of the book or on Amazon, and you can see a little bit more about what we're doing in order to advance chronic disease prevention.
Well, thank you so much for coming to the show, and again, and really telling it like it is, I'm just going to say to the audience, thank you for listening. And if you're listening to this for the first time, I encourage you to listen to it again, because it's really valuable information. And don't be suckered by manufacturers and restaurants that are playing to the palate. Doesn't mean, just because it tastes good doesn't mean it is good.
Yes.
Okay, and just because it doesn't taste good doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
But go for the real stuff, the good stuff. And as we enter into our holiday season, I wish everybody a really nice evening and a really safe and nutritious holiday season, even going forward into 2024. Thanks again. Bye-bye.